We live in a world where appearances are everything. From the clothes we wear to the job titles we claim, everything about us seems to be shaped by the external expectations of others. Society has become a stage, and we are all actors performing in a play we never chose. It's not that we want to be fake, but it's what we're taught to do. We're taught that authenticity, vulnerability, and true self-expression are not only unnecessary, but sometimes dangerous. Friedrich Nietzsche, the 19th century philosopher known for his radical ideas, believed that most people spend their entire lives faking their existence. They wear masks. They adopt identities not their own. They follow the crowd and live for the approval of others. In essence, they fake their lives, living in ways that are disconnected from their true selves. They conform because it's easier. They conform because it is safer. But Nietzsche did not see this as a simple flaw of modern society. He saw it as a tragedy. A tragedy that, over time, strips individuals of their essence, leaving them hollow and disconnected from who they really are. He argued that most people don't even know they are faking their lives. They think they are living truthfully. They believe they are following their own desires, but they are merely following the desires of the herd, a herd that dictates what is acceptable, what is normal, and what is worthy of pursuit. For Nietzsche, the root of this problem was the herd mentality, a concept that he explored extensively in his works. The herd, he argued, is society's collective force that pressures individuals to conform, to abandon their individuality in favor of fitting in. It tells people what they should value, what they should fear, and how they should act. The herd is relentless. It doesn't care about the individual. It cares about maintaining the status quo. Nietzsche's critique of society wasn't just about rebellion for the sake of rebellion. It was about reclaiming individual authenticity. He warned that to live inauthentically, to live by society's script, is to abandon one's true potential. In living inauthentically, we are not only pretending to be someone we are not, we are denying the possibility of who we could truly become. The pressure to conform is not new. It has existed for centuries, and it has only grown more intense in the modern world. Social media has amplified this pressure, providing a constant stream of images of what we should look like, how we should behave, what success should look like. We are bombarded with the expectations of others, and over time, many of us forget what it feels like to live for ourselves. But Nietzsche's challenge to us is this: why should we live for others? Why should we accept the identities that society gives us? Why should we continue to wear masks that hide our true selves? To live authentically, to embrace who we truly are, means to reject the herd's definitions of success, happiness, and morality. It means rejecting the masks we have worn for so long. It means looking inside ourselves, not for answers dictated by others, but for the answers that come from within. Nietzsche's call to authenticity isn't a call to reject society entirely. Rather, it is a call to reject conformity. It is a call to stop faking our lives and to start living them on our own terms, by our own values, and according to our own vision. It is a call to embrace the individual self, no matter how uncomfortable it might be. This is where Nietzsche's philosophy begins, by asking us to confront the masks we wear, to question the identities we have adopted, and to face the truth of who we are, not who society wants us to be. At the heart of Nietzsche's philosophy is his disdain for society's pervasive influence on the individual. He believed that the majority of people were trapped in a system that stifled their potential, limited their creativity, and forced them into a mold that wasn't their own. This system, the herd mentality, is, in Nietzsche's view, the reason most people end up faking their lives. In his seminal work, Thus Spoke Zarathustra, Nietzsche presents the concept of the Übermensch, overman, a person who transcends the limitations imposed by society, living freely according to their own will. The Übermensch is not beholden to the traditional norms of morality or religion. They create their own values, live authentically, and chart their own path. But for most people, this is nearly impossible because society has created a structure that forces conformity. The herd mentality is one of the most central ideas in Nietzsche's critique of society. The herd represents the collective, the masses who follow the norms, values, and expectations of society without question. These individuals often lack a true sense of self, living according to rules that have been handed down to them by others. They follow blindly, not because they choose to, but because it is the easiest path, the safest path. To step outside the herd, to go against the grain, is to risk rejection, isolation, and suffering. Nietzsche believed that this herd mentality was particularly dangerous because it masked the true potential of individuals. People conformed not because they genuinely wanted to, but because they were taught that conformity was necessary for social harmony. They were conditioned to believe that their worth was determined by their ability to fit into the existing structures of society, to be good citizens, obedient followers, and consumers. But in doing so, they forfeited the opportunity to live authentic, meaningful lives. The will to power. Central to Nietzsche's critique of society is the concept of the will to power. For Nietzsche, this was not merely a desire for domination over others, but a fundamental drive within all human beings to assert themselves, to create, and to overcome the limitations imposed by external forces. The will to power is about self-overcoming, about the individual's ability to transcend their circumstances and to realize their potential. It is the force that drives us to challenge ourselves, to create new possibilities, and to embrace life in all its complexity. However, society, as Nietzsche saw it, does the opposite. It encourages people to surrender their will to power in favor of the collective will, the will of the herd. This results in mediocrity, in individuals being reduced to mere cogs in a machine. The societal structures, Nietzsche argued, were designed not to nurture the growth of the individual, but to control and suppress it. Schools, religions, governments, all of these institutions, in Nietzsche's view, were tools that served to pacify and subdue the individual, discouraging creativity, independence, and the pursuit of personal excellence. Religion and morality, tools of the herd. Nietzsche's critique of society also extended to traditional religious systems, particularly Christianity. He famously declared that God is dead, not in a literal sense, but as a metaphor for the decline of traditional religious authority in the modern world. For Nietzsche, Christianity was not simply a set of spiritual beliefs, but a moral framework that served to reinforce the herd mentality. Christianity, in his view, was a slave morality that promoted weakness, humility, and submission. It taught people to value meekness over strength, self-sacrifice over self-assertion, and obedience over individuality. In his book on the genealogy of morals, Nietzsche argued that these moral values, which had been embedded in society for centuries, were part of a larger system designed to suppress the natural instincts and drives of the individual. Instead of encouraging people to assert their will to power and live authentically, religion and traditional morality taught people to feel guilt and shame for their desires, their strength, and their potential. Nietzsche believed that this moral system made people feel alienated from themselves, convincing them that they were wrong for wanting to express their true desires and power. Slave morality versus master morality. At the core of Nietzsche's critique of traditional values is his distinction between slave morality and master morality. Slave morality, which he associated with Christianity, was a morality of weakness. It arose from the resentment of the oppressed towards the powerful and the strong. According to slave morality, virtues like humility, patience, and meekness were praised because they were seen as virtues that could be embraced by the weak and oppressed. The slaves were taught to value their suffering as virtuous and to accept their lot in life with passivity. We live in a world where the pressure to conform is suffocating. From the moment we are born, we are thrust into a system that tells us who we should be, what we should desire, and how we should live. We are given a script, and we are expected to follow the script that doesn't ask us who we are or what we truly want, but instead dictates what success, happiness, and purpose should look like. Nietzsche believed that this external pressure is not only suffocating, but also destructive to the true self. The idea that we must adhere to societal norms, religious expectations, and cultural standards forces us to wear masks. These masks are not just symbolic. They are the identities we create to fit into the roles we are assigned. We pretend to be who society expects us to be, and in doing so, we deny the person we truly are underneath. The burden of conformity is heavy. Every day, we are bombarded with messages about how we should behave, what we should value, and how we should appear. Social media amplifies this pressure, with constant comparisons and curated versions of success, beauty, and happiness. The more we try to fit into this mold, the more we lose touch with our authentic selves. We begin to believe that the life we are leading is who we are, when in fact, it is just a performance. The social construct of the self. Nietzsche's critique goes beyond the surface. He argued that society's insistence on conformity forces individuals to adopt false identities. These identities are shaped by external forces, the family, religion, culture, school, and peers, that dictate who we should be and how we should behave. These constructs may feel like our identity, but they are, in reality, a collection of roles we play to gain acceptance and avoid rejection. From childhood, we are taught to be good students, obedient children, successful professionals, and ideal partners. We are taught to follow the rules, play the game, and perform our roles. And in doing so, we lose touch with the very thing that makes us unique, our individuality. The more we wear these masks, the further we move away from the essence of who we are. We become actors in a play we never auditioned for, performing not to express ourselves, but to satisfy the expectations of others. Nietzsche called this the death of the individual. When we allow society's script to dictate our identity, we cease to be ourselves. We cease to create. We cease to live authentically. Instead, we live for approval, for acceptance, for external validation. In the process, we fake our lives. We become hollow, disconnected from our true desires and potential. The false self, a prison of conformity. When we create a false self, we build a prison around our true nature. This false self is what society expects from us, the good person, the successful individual, the loving partner. The problem is not the expectations themselves, but the fact that we accept them without question. We internalize these ideals, believing they are our own. But deep down, we feel the dissonance between who we are and who we pretend to be. The false self, in many ways, becomes our shield. It protects us from the uncomfortable feelings of rejection, loneliness, and fear. When we conform, we avoid conflict. We avoid standing out. We avoid being seen as different. But the price we pay for this shield is high. The more we cling to the false self, the more disconnected we become from our true desires, our creativity, and our potential. Nietzsche's insight here is profound. He understood that the false self is not only limiting, but ultimately destructive. It traps us in a life that is not truly ours. It leads to feelings of emptiness, frustration, and confusion. We live a life of quiet desperation, unable to answer the fundamental question, who am I? The more we fake our lives, the more we lose sight of our true selves. The fear of rejection, why we fake it. One of the strongest motivators behind faking our lives is the fear of rejection. From a young age, we are taught to fear standing out, to fear being different, to fear being ostracized. The fear of rejection is deeply ingrained in us because humans are social animals, and acceptance by the group was once essential for survival. In the modern world, this fear manifests in our desire to fit in, to adhere to the standards of beauty, success, and morality set by society. But Nietzsche argued that this fear is paralyzing. It keeps us locked in roles that are not our own, unable to express our true nature. The desire to conform prevents us from discovering who we truly are. In avoiding rejection, we reject ourselves. In a world that values conformity, the courage to be yourself becomes an act of rebellion. To reject societal expectations and embrace your true self requires the bravery to stand apart from the crowd, to face the possibility of rejection, and to embrace the discomfort of being different. At the heart of Nietzsche's philosophy lies a powerful and provocative concept, the Übermensch, or the overman. The Übermensch is not just a figure of ideal strength or power. He is the embodiment of human potential, the individual who transcends societal norms, rejects the herd mentality, and creates his own values. The Übermensch represents Nietzsche's vision of what humanity could become if it dared to break free from the constraints of conformity and live authentically. Nietzsche's Übermensch is a radical departure from the conventional ideas of success, morality, and self-identity. While most people live constrained by the rules and expectations of society, the Übermensch lives without limits, forging his own path and living according to his inner will. But this freedom does not come easily. It requires courage, strength, and the willingness to confront the discomfort of standing apart from the herd. For Nietzsche, the Übermensch is the ultimate rejection of the fake lives that so many people lead. Most people live by the standards set by others, trapped in a cycle of imitation and conformity. The Übermensch, however, rejects these standards entirely. He creates his own life, grounded in his own truth, and is willing to embrace the challenges, difficulties, and sufferings that come with it. In this sense, the Übermensch is not someone who seeks comfort or approval from others. Rather, he seeks to become more than he is, to push the boundaries of his own existence. The Übermensch as creator. The essence of the Übermensch is creation not just of art or physical achievements, but of values and meaning itself. Nietzsche believed that most people go through life accepting values handed to them by society, religion, or culture. These values, according to Nietzsche, are often limiting and suffocating. The Übermensch, in contrast, creates his own values, living by his own standards, and measuring his life by his own achievements. In the same way an artist creates a painting from a blank canvas, the Übermensch creates his life from a place of deep authenticity. He is not bound by the constraints of existing moral frameworks or societal expectations. He does not need external validation, nor does he seek to fit into any prescribed role. Instead, he creates his identity and defines his purpose according to his deepest desires and inner truths. This is the power of the Übermensch, the power to transcend what is handed down, to reject the inherited beliefs that limit growth and potential, and to create something entirely new. In doing so, the Übermensch becomes not only a force of personal liberation, but a beacon of possibility for others who might also be trapped in the illusion of societal norms. The will to power and self-overcoming. One of the fundamental concepts underlying the Übermensch is Nietzsche's idea of the will to power. This is not just a desire for domination or control over others, but rather the fundamental drive to grow, create, and overcome limitations. The will to power is the force that drives us to transcend our current state and become more than we are, to push beyond our fears, our weaknesses, and our doubts, and to become fully realized individuals. For Nietzsche, the path to becoming the Übermensch is a journey of self-overcoming. It requires constant reflection, the willingness to confront and overcome one's own limitations, and the courage to reject easy answers. The Übermensch does not merely accept who he is. He constantly strives to become more, to surpass the boundaries set by both society and his own nature. This is a painful process, but it is the only true path to personal greatness. In modern life, where conformity is often the easiest path, Nietzsche's vision of the Übermensch is revolutionary. To become the Übermensch is to step off the beaten path and create your own. It is to reject the comfort of fitting in, of following the rules, and to embrace the discomfort of standing alone, pursuing what is true and meaningful to you, even if it goes against the grain of societal expectations. There is a whisper that echoes through the corridors of existence, a whisper that beckons to us from a place we cannot quite reach, yet cannot escape, a question that lingers like a shadow, unseen but felt. What if everything you did, every choice you made, every moment of your life repeated endlessly? What if, in the deepest recesses of time, every action you took were to return, not as a distant memory, but as an eternal recurrence? Nietzsche, the prophet of self-overcoming, posed this question not as a mere abstract thought, but as a challenge to the very nature of life itself. The eternal recurrence is not a concept for the faint of heart. It is not a philosophy to be pondered idly in the comfort of armchairs or the safety of the familiar. No, the eternal recurrence is a confrontation. It is a mirror held up to the soul, forcing us to gaze into it and ask, would you live this life again, exactly as you've lived it? The eternal recurrence is not a punishment, but a test of the soul. It is a call to live fully, not in the shallow, fleeting ways that most lives unfold, but in the deep, visceral truth of one's own being. To live with such intensity, such authenticity, that the idea of repeating one's existence is not a burden, but a blessing. To be so deeply immersed in the experience of life, with all its pain, beauty, joy, and sorrow, that you would embrace it all over again without hesitation. What if your life was not a story with an end, but a tale that spirals back upon itself, each chapter unfolding again and again, each word a moment in time that you would have to live over without change, without escape? Would you regret? Would you shrink back, terrified by the thought of living a life so filled with illusions, so far from your deepest truth that you'd beg for it to end? Or would you stand tall, your heart beating in rhythm with the pulse of eternity, embracing the struggle and the triumph, the failure and the glory, knowing that it all circles back again? For Nietzsche, the question was not idle. It was a call to arms against the quiet suffocation of the false self. To live with the awareness of the eternal recurrence is to awaken from the slumber of living for others, to shatter the illusion that life can be lived in halves, in compromises, in fakes. If every moment were to repeat, how could we possibly continue to live in denial of who we truly are? How could we continue to wear the masks that society hands us, pretending to be something we are not, knowing that we would have to wear them forever? The eternal recurrence demands that we stop faking our lives. It demands that we stop running from the parts of ourselves that we fear, that we have hidden in the shadows. It forces us to reckon with the fact that every action we take, every small choice, every fleeting thought echoes through eternity. We are not allowed to live passively, drifting from moment to moment, hoping that one day, somehow, we will find meaning. Number. To live under the weight of the eternal recurrence is to make each moment count. It is to live as though everything you do will be repeated forever, with no escape from the consequences. This is the challenge Nietzsche set before us, to live in such a way that the idea of eternal recurrence is not terrifying, but exhilarating. To live in such a way that every decision, every action is a testament to our deepest self, unshackled by the expectations of others. If we are to face eternity, we must face ourselves first. And in doing so, we must shed the false selves we have constructed, the masks, the roles, the identities that were never truly ours. But this is not a path for the weak. To live as though each moment is eternal is to confront everything we have been running from. It is to face the uncomfortable truths about our desires, our fears, our failures, and our potential. To live authentically in the face of eternal recurrence is to live without compromise, without pretense. It is to cast aside the comfortable lies we tell ourselves and step into the raw, unfiltered truth of our being. And in doing so, we begin to realize that we are not victims of the eternal recurrence. We are its architects. Each moment of our lives is a brushstroke on the canvas of eternity. We have the power to create a life that is worth repeating, a life that echoes with meaning, authenticity, and strength, but only if we stop faking it. Only if we stop pretending that we are something we are not. The eternal recurrence is not a burden. It is the ultimate freedom, the freedom to live fully, to embrace every moment, to create a life that is worthy of being repeated again and again for all eternity. But to do this, we must be willing to face the deepest, darkest corners of ourselves, to confront the lies we have been living, and to rise above them. What is the truth? Is it something we discover in the world around us, or something we create within ourselves? Nietzsche's philosophy is built upon a singular, unsettling challenge to question everything. Not just the things that are obviously false, not just the institutions we are told to distrust, but everything. Everything we think we know, everything we hold as absolute, every assumption about ourselves and the world. Nietzsche understood that only by confronting the roots of these unquestioned beliefs could we ever hope to live authentically. And this questioning is not merely intellectual, it is a rebellion of the soul. In a world that constantly presses us to accept things as they are, to fall in line with established norms, the very act of questioning is a radical act. It is the refusal to accept the world as it's handed to us, the courage to dismantle the systems that bind us, and the audacity to forge a new path, one born of our deepest convictions, not the echo of someone else's. Nietzsche's challenge isn't simply to ask questions. It is to seek answers that are ours and ours alone. He recognized that most people are trapped in a world of borrowed beliefs. They live according to rules and moralities that they never chose for themselves. These systems, religions, traditions, societal norms are not truths that they have arrived at after deep contemplation. Instead, they are shackles that bind them to a life of pretense and imitation. And it is here, Nietzsche says, that we must start. To question the sacred. The first question Nietzsche asks us to confront is the one that shakes us to our core. Why do we believe what we believe? Why do we hold sacred what we do? The world has given us a set of beliefs, values, and systems that we've adopted. without ever fully questioning them. From childhood, we're told what is right, what is good, what is worthy. But Nietzsche asks, who decided this? What gives anyone the right to dictate the values by which we should live? And more importantly, why are we so quick to accept these imposed values as truths? To question everything is not to descend into nihilism as some might think. It is not a call to reject all values, but rather to scrutinize the origins of these values. What is the basis for the morality we live by? Who benefits from this morality? Is it one that promotes true flourishing, or does it simply keep us complacent, obedient, and small? By questioning the values we live by, we are forced to confront the uncomfortable truth that most of these values have been handed to us. They are not the result of personal exploration, nor are they the product of a life truly lived. They are external impositions, systems designed to control, to stifle, to suppress the will to power within each of us. Questioning morality. Morality, the very concept of right and wrong, is perhaps the most sacred of the things we are told to accept unquestioningly. But Nietzsche, in his relentless pursuit of truth, dared to question the foundations of morality itself. He understood that most moral systems, especially the ones imposed by religions and societies, are not designed to foster human greatness, but to maintain order. They encourage weakness, humility, self-sacrifice, and obedience to authority. These virtues, Nietzsche argued, were not the path to greatness, but the path to mediocrity. This is where Nietzsche's master morality and slave morality come into play. Slave morality is the morality of the masses, those who are oppressed and weak. It values meekness, humility, and self-denial, encouraging people to suppress their desires and instincts. Master morality, on the other hand, is the morality of the powerful, the creative, the free spirits who live according to their own will. It values strength, pride, and the assertion of one's desires. By questioning morality, Nietzsche was not advocating for a rejection of all values, but a deep and personal investigation into what values truly serve us. What is it that we value and why? Are these values truly ours, or have we inherited them from a world that seeks to control us? Are we living according to our own will or the will of others? The freedom to create your own values. One of Nietzsche's most radical propositions is that we must be free to create our own values. He rejected the idea that morality was universal, fixed, or absolute. For Nietzsche, the highest form of freedom comes not from the absence of external constraints, but from the ability to create one's own moral code, to live according to one's own truth, irrespective of what society demands. To question everything means to take the first steps on the path of self-overcoming. It means to reject the imposed values of the herd and instead live with the courage to create something entirely new. It means becoming a creator of your own life, rejecting the labels and identities that society has placed upon you, and instead forging a path that is uniquely yours. There's a faint pulse beneath the surface of the world, a vibration that most never feel, but those who do cannot ignore. It calls to us from the depths of ourselves, an echo of something lost, something forgotten, and yet it is always there, waiting to be remembered. The call is simple, but it is profound. It whispers, "Wake up. Wake up from the dream you are living. Wake up from the roles you have been given, the masks you wear, the life you pretend to live." The herd is all around you, its footsteps heavy with conformity, its eyes dull with fear, but somewhere within there is a part of you that refuses to join them. Somewhere deep within, a flame still flickers. To live authentically, to break free from the herd, is to listen to that quiet whisper and follow it, even though the world urges you to turn away. It is not a call for rebellion, not a cry for chaos. No, it is a summons to the deepest truth you have ever known, a truth buried beneath the layers of societal conditioning, of inherited values, of the identities you've been forced to assume. But that truth is not easily found. It is buried beneath the weight of generations, the weight of expectations, the weight of fear. Most live for others. They live to please, to fit in, to be accepted. The world teaches us to suppress what is uniquely ours, to fit into the mold of what others think we should be. We trade authenticity for approval, strength for safety, truth for comfort. And yet, each time we do, something dies inside us. The fire dims, the music of our soul grows faint. We are told it's easier this way. We are told that comfort is peace and safety is happiness. But what they don't tell you is that comfort is a cage and safety is a lie. The herd, Nietzsche tells us, is a collective, a mass of souls who have surrendered to the noise of the world. It is easier to blend in, easier to follow the path laid before you, easier to let others do the thinking. But in doing so, we forfeit the most precious thing we possess, our individuality. The herd moves as one, thinking as one, living as one, bound together by a common hollow purpose. To break free from this is to break the chains that bind you to a life half-lived, to step into the unknown and embrace the raw, unfiltered version of yourself that lies beneath the surface. To break free from the herd is not to run from others, but to run toward yourself. It is not to reject society entirely, but to reject its demands upon your soul. The herd will call you selfish, reckless, even mad. It will try to pull you back into line, to remind you of the comfort of the crowd. But in breaking free, you will find that the real freedom lies not in fitting in, but in standing alone. The journey is not an easy one. To live authentically requires the courage to face the depths of your own soul. It requires the courage to ask questions that most never dare to ask. Who am I really? What do I truly want? Beneath all the layers of expectation and obligation, to ask these questions is to open a door that cannot be closed again. Once the truth begins to stir within you, once it begins to take root in your soul, it is impossible to ignore. But that truth, that self, is terrifying. It is the wild part of you that society has tried to tame, the part of you that resists the mold, the part of you that knows there is more to life than following the rules. It is the part of you that longs for something deeper, something real. The world will tell you to ignore it, to silence it, to bury it once again beneath the demands of others. But every time you listen to that truth, every time you follow that whisper, you reclaim a piece of yourself that was once lost. Living authentically is a rebellion. It is a rebellion not against others, but against the lies we've been told, the lie that we are nothing more than the roles we play, the lie that we must follow the herd to survive. In living authentically, we break free from the chains of expectation and embrace the unknown. The herd wants you to be predictable, to follow its steps. But to live authentically is to be unpredictable, to follow your own rhythm, to dance to the beat of your own heart. As you walk this path, you will encounter resistance. The world will try to pull you back, to convince you that there is safety in the crowd, that there is peace in conformity. But peace is not found in the absence of struggle. Peace is found in living a life that is truly yours. It is found in the courage to stand apart, to speak your truth, to create a life that is not dictated by the opinions of others, but shaped by your own desires and vision.